Okay, I'm going to be straightforward with you. In the next few minutes, you will learn how to reinstate your innate gift, which is your magic and the ability to control your reality. However, this will require effort and dedication to what I am going to teach you. Understood? Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "The mind is like a monkey, swinging from thought to thought, never still." And that's exactly what most of us experience. For instance, you wake up in the morning, and before you've even had a chance to fully stretch, the voice in your head starts, "Did I oversleep? What if things don't go according to plan today? I shouldn't have said that yesterday." It hops from one fear to the next, going over conversations you had in the past, imagining worst-case scenarios, berating you for every action you took. This doubt lingers with you throughout the day, as you drink your morning coffee on your commute, even while trying to have a moment of quiet. It shuffles you away from the moment, leaving you caught in a miasma of thought. As the Kybalion teaches, the mind is its own place, and when this noise dominates, it becomes like a cracked mirror, reflecting a distorted version of reality. But here is the truth. That voice, it's not you. It's like a constant radio station you didn't tune into, blasting noise that clouds your thoughts and keeps you from experiencing life fully. But what if the voice stopped, even for a second? What happened if, in that stillness, something deeper emerged, something real? Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us in The Miracle of Mindfulness that peace is not something outside of you. It's already within, waiting beneath the noise. He writes, "When you stop and breathe, you touch the miracle of being alive." The moment we step away from the constant inner chatter, we begin to see life as it truly is. Simple, clear, and profoundly alive. In this video, you are going to learn how the audio stream in your mind constructs your world, why you have to cease self-talk, and most importantly, how to make the shift. There are no special skills, aspirations, or high-minded philosophies necessary, just a willingness to observe the voice, to allow it and return to the present moment. Time to now walk into the stillness, where freedom promises to await us. Have you ever dared to listen to the voice inside your head? You know, the voice that never leaves, narrating your life, making judgments, worrying, reliving past mistakes. It sounds a little like you, doesn't it? But here's the thing. That voice isn't you. It's like a roommate who just won't shut up. Commentary, opinions with more commentary, criticism, more commentary. And most of the time, it's even not helpful. This voice isn't only narrating your life, it's influencing how you are experiencing it. Hermetic philosophy has a lot to say regarding this. The authentic one of its book is Kybalion, penned in 1908 by a trio who went by the name the Three Initiates. This book condenses ancient wisdom teaching of Hermetic philosophy. These teachings are said to have come through Hermes Trismegistus, a mythological figure who was worshipped as the scribe of the gods in ancient Egypt. It is based upon an insight into the laws of the universe and the principles that govern it. The all is mind, the universe is mental, which is one of its core ideas, is called the principle of mentalism. Put in other words, it all starts with thought. Your mind does more than process the world. It creates your experience of it. This is just a fancy way of saying that all beginnings are in thought. That voice inside your head, those incessant mental monologues, creates your world. It's not what happens that matters to your experience. It's how you perceive it. Yep, the mind is powerful. Your thoughts aren't merely reflecting the world, they are creating it. According to Hermetic teachings, the universe is a mirror that mirrors your mental state. If your self-talk is rife with doubt or fear, that's what you perceive in the world around you. Like your thoughts are blocking the light from your reality. But here's the positive. You can change those thoughts. The Kybalion states that controlling your thoughts is the first step in controlling your world. As one Hermetic axiom has it, he who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery. That doesn't mean you need to fight every thought. That's not possible. By becoming aware of your inner dialogue, however, you can determine how much power you give it. Now, let's delve into how this constant monologue influences our everyday experiences. Thich Nhat Hanh, in The Miracle of Mindfulness, gives a simple but profound insight. Our scattered thoughts distract us from the present moment. He said, "While washing the dishes, only washing the dishes." This may sound trivial at first. What is the point of focusing so deeply in on something so mundane? But the lesson here is profound. If your mind is scattered, worrying about a to-do list for tomorrow, or replaying an awkward conversation from yesterday, you're not exactly in the moment. You are stuck in a merry-go-round of thoughts, with not much room for clarity or peace. Thich Nhat Hanh describes this like an overflowing cup. When the mind is too filled with its own noise, there isn't room for anything new, neither joy, nor insight, nor a moment of calm. In this condition, it is as we are caught into a self-talk cycle. Imagine you're sitting down to lunch. Rather than savoring the tastes or the warmth of your meal, your brain is in another place. But I shouldn't have had that donut earlier. I'll never lose weight. Or, I need to send that email after this. I hope I don't mess it up. This kind of inner talk sets up a distance between you and the simple act of eating. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, if we cannot wash the dishes, it is very unlikely that we will be able to drink our tea. This kind of scattered self-talk isn't merely distracting, it's tiring. It ensures you stay stuck in a perpetual state of doing and never just being. And the more you interact with it, the more it expands. It's like throwing stones into a still lake. The water can't settle until you stop throwing stones. What we can take from this is, your inner dialogue is strong, yet it isn't you. It's like a storyteller on a stage telling stories that you don't actually have to believe. Mindfulness can also be an excellent tool to keep in mind, as this can allow you to start to untangle yourself from the noise, as you appreciate that all is connected. So you need to build a center point so that you are not easily swayed. The wound is the place where the light enters you. As Rumi explained, try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. When you stop allowing the voice in your head to call the shots, you make way for a fuller, more tranquil reality. It's not about shutting the voice up completely. It's about recognizing that you don't have to pay attention to the voice. You can choose stillness. You can choose presence. And that's where the real transformation starts. Now, before directly jumping to the shift, let's understand what happens when we get carried away by this inner voice and listen to its ever-present deception. Did you ever look in a mirror that is cracked? It is a version of you, but it's partial, fragmented, and warped. This is what happens when we allow the voice in our heads tell us who we are. Your inner voice is like a broken mirror. It does not mirror the truth. It presents a distorted version of reality, one that has the tint of fear, bias, and insecurity. When you see yourself and your life through this warped lens, is it any wonder you feel inadequate, overwhelmed, or stuck? Think about it. Ever enter a meeting thinking, "I'm not ready, everyone's going to notice"? You get that thought and you act accordingly. You may stumble over your speech or shun eye contact, confirming your assumption. Such thoughts fracture the mirror reflecting back at you. Suddenly, you're not a competent person getting ready for a presentation. You're someone on the brink of failure, even though it's not like anything has occurred yet. As the Hermetic lessons remind us, the mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. This demonstrates the power of mind distortions. When we find ourselves trapped in the cage of the endless mental chatter of judgments, worry, and what-ifs, we become disconnected from reality and believe the cracked reflection. The thing about the voice in your head is that it won't shut up. It's a constant presence, replaying old mistakes, fretting over the future, judging everything. This constant stream of chatter does more than warp your sense of self. It traps you in a mental cage. It's a loop that you cannot get out of. Say you're scrolling through social media and see someone on vacation, living what appears to be their best life. The voice in your head pipes up, "Why can't I have that? I'm not doing enough. My life is not as good as theirs." What's happening here? The voice is comparing and judging and distorting your perception of reality. You're experiencing the world not as it is, but as refracted through the cracked lens of insecurity and comparison. And this is why the voice is so tiring. It tells you that you're not enough, that you need to earn who you are, and that a quiet life is always at second hand. This is also very well covered in the Hermetica, which is a collection of early works that is said to be given to man by Hermes Trismegistus. One of its central themes is that the chatter of our minds gives rise to the illusion of separation. When you are distracted by mental noise, you feel separated from yourself, from others, from the universe at large. In Hermetic wisdom, this illusion of separation is the source of suffering. In one passage, Hermes writes, "Your mind is divided by innumerable desires and fears, but in truth, it is the one with the all." In other words, no matter how much mental noise there is, there's another layer underneath that, a reality, a union of all things. But to feel it, you have to silence the chatter and peer beyond the cracks in the mirror. That is consistent with contemporary mindfulness teachings. Thich Nhat Hanh often says that the mind makes false divisions. Writes, "The wave does not need to die to be water. It is already water. Just like you don't need to change who you are to find peace, you simply need to see that it is your thoughts that create separation. And to understand how to break this cage, we need to understand how this cage forms around our mind. It is an enclosure of judgment, fear, comparison, and complaint. These are the bars that keep you locked in. Judgment is that little voice in your head that is judging everything, including you, others, the situation. This isn't good enough. I should have done better." Fear doesn't shout, it whispers worst-case scenarios and keeps you trapped in a feedback loop of fear and anxiety. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? Comparison means you measure your life against others and you come up short. They're happier, they're more successful, they're more fulfilled. Lastly, complaint highlights the problem, magnifying the negative. Why is this happening to me? It's so unfair. These patterns are the ones fueling the separation illusion, which keeps you feeling alone and not enough. But the truth is that the bars of this cage are made of thought. They're not as solid as they seem. It's simply a tool your mind uses to make sense of the world. But when you pull back, you realize that there's something deeper, a timeless, steady state beneath the rain. This is what has been referred to by Hermetic philosophy as the All, the higher universal mind that all things in the universe are connected to. As Rumi said, "Don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth." It means escaping the mind games and standing in what is true for you. What is intact, unconquered, part of the universe. Your inner voice feels powerful, but it's not the master of your life. It's only a reflection, a fractured mirror that alters reality. By recognizing the cage it creates, you can begin to step out of it. Remember, as the Hermetica teaches, the mind is the builder, but it is also the key to freedom. The moment you stop identifying with the cracks, the cage begins to disappear, and you reconnect with the stillness that has been there all along. But what happens when you stop talking to yourself, and how creating a pause can open the door to profound clarity and connection? Have you ever stood by a calm lake, so still that it mirrors the sky perfectly? In that stillness, there's clarity, a reflection so pure that it feels timeless. The moment you stop engaging with the voice in your head, something incredible happens. A void appears. But this void isn't empty, it's full of possibilities. It's in this space of silence that your true awareness emerges. Thich Nhat Hanh, in The Miracle of Mindfulness, describes this as coming back to yourself. When you pause and let the inner chatter flow openly, you create a space where the constant chatter fades and you begin to feel the present moment fully. This is not trying to force your thoughts to be quiet. This is observing your thoughts without attachment and allowing them to drift away like clouds drift across the sky. This agrees with Hermetic wisdom contained in the Hermetica, noting that when the mind is still, it is a mirror for the oneness of the universe. Hermes says, "Be quiet and listen. May the truth be spoken in the quiet of your heart." When you no longer talk to yourself, you come back to this deeper truth, the being that does not get rattled by the world or the noise inside. What is it about this pause that is so potent? Because it breaks the uninterrupted flow of mental activity. Momentum is the lifeblood of the voice inside your head. It leaps gleefully from one thought to the next without ever taking a rest. But when you stop, you break the cycle. Researchers have determined that these moments of intentional stillness actually turn off the part of your brain that is preoccupied with reacting to your environment, making you less vulnerable to feeling overwhelmed. Just think about how you feel when you're in trouble or you're bandied about with bad news. You start thinking of all the what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. But when you can stop, breathe, the picture doesn't look so dire. Such is the power of mindfulness. It doesn't make problems evaporate, but it arms you with the clarity and strength to deal with them. As Rumi beautifully said, "When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about." Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. In stillness, you find a space beyond words, a space where true awareness and peace reside. Now, let's return to the metaphor of the calm lake we discussed before. Imagine a lake on a day without wind. Its surface is so undisturbed that it mirrors everything, the trees, the sky, even a passing bird, at perfect precision. But when a pebble is thrown into the water, ripples spread, smearing the reflection. The lake is unchanged. It remains the same lake. But the factors on the surface obscured its reality. Your mind works the same way. When it's healthy, it's lucid and luminous, able to go deep and build bridges. But inner talk, like the pebble, creates waves that distort your perception. All that thinking, analysis, judgment prevents you from perceiving reality, from perceiving yourself as they are. So, how do you eliminate the interferences? You're not trying to stop the ripples by force. That would just churn up more turbulence. Instead, you allow them to settle after some time. This is mindfulness in a nutshell, to let thoughts come and go without being attached. Thich Nhat Hanh recommends beginning with your breath. He writes, "I calm my body by breathing in. Breathing out, I smile." This simple ritual redirects your attention to the present moment where the ripples of your mind can dissipate on their own. The teachings of Hermes provide a kindred approach. Hermes says, in the Hermetica, to align the mind with the divine order of the universe. This is where releasing distractions and returning to your inner peace comes into play. As Hermes puts it, let your soul shine as a reflection of the light of heaven, and in that reflection, find tranquility. And as the ripples dissipate, what remains is an enduring feeling of clarity and connectedness. In silence, you hear your inner wisdom, the soft voice that knows what really matters. This is what it has to get you to do in order to see your true self, unreflected, but extrapolated out of a mix of mental noise. The beauty of stillness is that it is simple. It's not about doing more, it's about doing less. And by creating quiet moments in between, by allowing the ripples in your mind to subside, you discover clarity you've always had. You understand that inside the storm of thoughts, where you can't rest, is a lake of calm inside of you, a reflection of who you are and the authentic you. As Lao Tzu reminds us, muddy water let stand becomes clear. Likewise, just like when you stop talking yourself and let stillness fill up the gaps, the truth of who you are will start breaking its way through. It is in the silence that we begin to find clarity. The lake of our mind now calm, is free of ripples of mental chatter when we know things, and reflects reality as it is. But stillness isn't something you just do. It's a practice, the first of which is mindfulness, as defined by Thich Nhat Hanh. The Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh recommends simple but powerful practices to connect back to the present moment. This isn't just theoretical theory. It's practical techniques that can turn everyday things into a time of peace and clarity. Washing the dishes to wash the dishes. One of Thich Nhat Hanh's most well-known examples is washing the dishes. When washing the dishes, one should only be washing the dishes, he writes. It's not rushing to complete a task or looking toward what's next. It's being present in the act. You feel the lukewarm water, you observe the soapy bubbles, and you hear the soft clinking of plates at the other side of the sink. If you become the process, the voice in the head, it goes to sleep. You are no longer lost in thought, you are tuned in to the moment. Focusing on the breath is another simplest yet most effective mindfulness practices. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it the bridge between your body and mind. When your inner voice gets too loud, breathe. Take a deep breath, pause, and let it out slowly. That rhythm quiets the mind and brings you back to the present moment. Mindfulness just adds to your plate. It makes you notice the things that are already there. And over time, these little moments of presence can change your relationship with the voice that lives in your head. This well-known expression is first introduced by Hermes Trismegistus in the Hermetica, where the principle of correspondence is presented. As above, so below. As below, so above. This teaching speaks to a deep truth. Your inner world shapes your outer universe. So yeah, you bring balance and harmony to your life by aligning your thoughts with higher consciousness. Hermes teaches us that your mind is a mirror that reflects divine order in the universe. But when it's clouded with negativity, fear, or judgment, it distorts that reflection. Before you connect with higher consciousness, you have to silence the unnecessary noise in your mind. Imagine polishing a mirror. You're smudging each time you release a negative thought, or you stop and observe instead of react. The mirror slowly gets clearer and you start seeing life as it is. Hermes places emphasis on the power of thought. The mind is the master weaver, he writes, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance. This means that by uplifting your thoughts, by focusing on your gratitude, your compassion, your higher ideals, you can change not only your mood, but your entire lived experience. If you're feeling stuck in a cycle of worry, try asking, what would my highest self do? This question reframes fear as possibility, helping you get into a more balanced and empowered state of mind. The correspondence principle also reminds us that balance starts from within. When your mind is all over the place, so is your energy. But when you learn to cultivate stillness and focus, you become aligned with the natural order of the universe. Thich Nhat Hanh summarizes it nicely, saying, when you're mindful, you're completely present, and when you really have presence, you touch the wonders of life. When you practice mindfulness and bring your thoughts in line with higher consciousness, you become a balance that radiates outward. Combining mindfulness and Hermetic teachings creates a powerful framework for quieting the voice in your head. Hermetic principles lead you toward alignment with the higher consciousness, while mindfulness keeps you present. Combined, they guide you from noise to stillness, chaos to clarity. On the whole, silencing the voice in your head isn't about getting rid of thoughts entirely. It's about making some distance between you and the chit-chat. Practicing mindfulness and alignment with higher consciousness brings you into balance, clarity, and peace. As Hermes Trismegistus said, within you is the light of the world. Light is what guides us. If you bring forth that light, It will illuminate your path. And as Thich Nhat Hanh teaches us, the miracle is not to walk on water, but to walk on the earth, fully present and alive. As your mindfulness practice manifests and you begin to tap into a higher consciousness, something miraculous starts to take place. In the quiet, something deeper within you reveals itself, the real you. This is when that shift happens. When the observer inside you wakes up, you start to see life in a completely different way without fear or judgment. When the voice in your head becomes quiet, a space is created. In this silence is when your true self, otherwise known as the observer, starts to come forth. The observer is the part of you that sees your thoughts without getting caught up in them. It's the stillness that knows, beneath all the racket, the infinite awareness that perceives everything just the way it is. In The Miracle of Mindfulness, Thich Nhat Hanh beautifully describes this process. In the stillness, you see that you are more than your thoughts, more than your emotions, he writes. You are the consciousness that watches them. It's one of those gentling truths that saves you from overthinking and over-perceived anxiety into clarity and tranquility. Think about being in a traffic jam. Normally, your mind might indulge a spiral of frustration. Why do these things always happen to me? I'm going to be late. But when the observer wakes up, you perceive the matter differently. Rather than reacting, you observe the thoughts coming up, acknowledge them, then allow them to pass. You may even catch yourself thinking, I'm not in control of the traffic, but I can be in control of how I react to it. This changes everything. You don't have to be at the whim of your thoughts or feelings anymore. Instead, you become the steady rock behind them, the watcher who doesn't flinch at what's unfolding around you. The Hermetica, the teachings from the Hermetic, reflect this same idea. Hermes writes, "You are not the storm. You are the one who stands unmoved as the storm rages around you. It is when you are silent that your truth is revealed. In silence, the truth of who you really are." This means your true self isn't the chaos of life or the noise in your mind. It's the stillness that observes it all. And in this transformation, the pause becomes a colossal weapon. If they bring you away from your mind, you are on the right path. It's like leaving a loud room and going to a quiet garden. The more you do this, the more you will find a deep sense of inner peace and clarity. As long as the observer remains asleep, you are the voice in your head and you have no freedom, none at all. This freedom is based on one of the most important principles of the Kybalion, cause and effect. It teaches us that each thought and each action sends out ripples. But as conscious beings, we can consciously decide how we will respond to the ripples that appear in our lives. If you are stuck in mental chit-chat, you are reactive. Someone cuts you off while driving, and all you can do is cry and get angry. A minor blunder at work leads to self-doubt. But when you connect with the observer, you understand that you don't need to react to every thought or situation. You have the ability to pause, breathe, and decide how you will respond. And this is what freedom looks like. You are no longer a plaything of your emotions or your circumstances. You instead become the master of your own mind. As the Kybalion puts it, the wise soul rises above the plane of causation and acts and moves from a higher plane of consciousness. Talking to yourself is all fodder for fear, and fear is a paranoid pest, feasting on mental chatter. You feed it with the voice in your head that perpetuates the worst-case scenario and tells you you're not smart enough, not capable enough. But when you shut that voice up, fear disappears. You understand that most of the things you dread are illusions, not realities. To overcome fear, Thich Nhat Hanh offers an incredibly simple and, simultaneously, deeply profound practice, the practice of presence. He writes, "When you are completely present, fear cannot exist. When you focus on the present, you realize you are safe. in such a way your shield against fear is mindfulness. The voice inside your head is always assessing you, people, circumstances. I'm not good enough. They shouldn't have done that. This isn't fair. These judgments make you feel separate and trap you in a negative state. But from the perspective of the observer, you see things as they are, without the need to label or judge. Hermes states this in The Hermetica. To judge is to divide. To observe is to unite. This means you have rejoined the oneness of all things. And so when you cease judging, you rejoin your brethren. You perceive yourself and others not as isolated or broken, but as integral pieces of a larger puzzle. And then, how do you connect to the observer more and live beyond fear and judgment? Here are a few simple practices. So, when a strong emotion or thought comes up, stop, breathe deeply. Ask yourself, who is aware of this thought? This question can help pull you out of being lost in a thought and just watching it. Second practice, non-judgment. Pay attention to where you're judging yourself or others throughout your day. Recognize the judgment and move on without engaging. Tell yourself, I am the observer, not the judge. Focus on the present. Use your breath or your senses to ground yourself in the present. When fear or judgment comes up, redirect your focus to what is happening in the present moment, not what could happen or what should have happened. And think also about cause and effect. When faced with a situation, pause and ask, what kind of ripple will this action create? This simple reflection allows you to respond deliberately rather than react instinctively. When you practice noticing your thoughts, as well as releasing fear and judgment, everything shifts. Life feels lighter. You are not overwhelmed by challenges. You laugh more easily, breathe more deeply, and take pleasure in the smallest things. This is what the Hermetic philosophy calls freedom, the freedom to walk through the illusions of the mind. For those who know, when free of the shackles of thought, the soul is free to take its rightful place among the stars, as Hermes teaches. The change isn't about becoming a different person. It's about recalling who you have always been. Below the noise of your mind is the observer, the calm and unperturbed aspect of you that beholds life as it really is. As Rumi said, you were born with wings. Why would you want to crawl through life? The moment you stop talking to yourself and start listening in the silence, you start to fly. You move from the prison of fear and judgment into the wide open field of awareness. This is the start of freedom, the insight that you are not the voice, but that which lies still beneath it. It's within this silence here that the real shift starts to happen. The noise quiets, and you begin to align with the truth of who you truly are. It's not that the shift happens to you. It's that the shift has always been waiting for you just below the surface. When you cease talking to yourself, that is to say, you move out of the prison of thought that both cages you and galvanizes you to act, into the wide open space of awareness. This is where life makes sense. The world feels lighter, and it's the first time that you got to see things how they really are. They're simple and beautiful and full of peace. So take a moment to pause, breathe,